and welcome back to the Beauty Lab podcast. I'm your host, Monina, and my co-host, Velia. Today we have a fun segment for you. We're going to talk all about brushes.
Welcome to the Beauty Lab podcast, your drive time resource for all things beauty, health, and wellness. We're your hosts and favorite beauty nerds, Monina and Velia.
Join us as we debunk myths, explore the latest trends, and dive deep into the science behind your favorite products. We'll interview industry experts and answer your burning beauty questions in 30 minutes or less. Okay, Velia, so I know everyone out there owns at least one hairbrush, but people like me, we own a lot. And I still actually don't know why I have so many
Because you use the same one for the
and
last
then
30 years.
Yes, I use the same one even though I have like 10 different ones. So my question is, first question, does the type of brush you use really matter?
Yes, the type of brush you use really does matter, especially when you're looking for a brush that is going to give you the style that you want. Now, if you're just brushing your hair and you don't actually style it, there's still a particular kind of brush that you will want to use. You can't just like eeny, meeny, miny, mo and pick the first one that you find.
And I have tried that. I've tried to just brush my hair out with a round brush, and it's like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, brushing your hair with a round brush really doesn't work. I know, that's so true. So yes, every brush has its place in this world.
Well then, with that, is there a brush that everybody should have, regardless?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so everybody should have at least a good detangling brush. And a detangling brush like this one, this is the wet brush. It's from the brand Wet Brush. And wet brushes are made for their like flexibility and their ease of use when you're trying to detangle your hair. So just as another little note, detangling your hair, you should always start from the bottom and work your way up. But detangling brushes do exist and they are made for that purpose.
Okay, so it's called a wet brush, but it's also detangler.
Yes.
And you just said something that I actually never knew. You said start at the bottom?
Yeah.
Why I always start on the top. Why do we want to start on the bottom?
So if you start at the top, if you're someone who can start at the top and like not get a bunch of tangles at the ends, then that's fine. Like sometimes when you have really short hair, it's okay if you start at the top and go down. You obviously don't have short hair. So if your hair is the type of hair that gets really tangled in the shower and now you have your wet hair and it has, detangler in it or like leave-in conditioner in it, starting from the bottom is beneficial because you're getting rid of the knots from the bottom and you're working your way up to the top. Versus if you start at the top and then you're brushing it down to the bottom, you're basically just brushing the knots down into like a big rat's nest.
Oh, and that totally makes sense because if you've got knots all the way down, you're just working against yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good boy. See? I learn something every time. Okay. Now, can you briefly explain the different types of brushes and what they're all used for?
Yeah, I know. There are so many different kinds of brushes. So I'll start with a vent brush. And I don't actually have a vent brush. It's not a brush that I use a lot in the salon just because of my clients and just sort of my habits. But you can use this particular kind of wet brush as a vent brush. So some of these wet brushes are not really meant to use with a blow dryer. But a vent brush is basically a brush that has little slots or holes in the back where when you brush your hair and you're using a blow dryer, the air is able to go through the brush. Does that make sense? Yes. So like the blow dryer is shooting this way and the holes in the back are letting the air flow through.
Okay.
And you can do different techniques with the vent brush, like kind of over direct, which means like going against the way your hair grows to get some volume at the root. So it's like a nice, before you actually style your hair with maybe a round brush, if that's what you're used to, if that's like the style you're going for, a vent brush is a nice brush to get started with because it helps dry your hair faster and just kind of get that extra moisture out. without just kind of taking your blow dryer and going crazy and just doing all kinds of crazy things that are going to work against you later and cause frizz.
And more tangles.
And more tangles.
Okay.
Exactly. So vent brush I love for that reason. And then there's a paddle brush. And a paddle brush looks just like this. It's usually like a big rectangle or a square. Sometimes they're oval, and they're solid on the back, and they have either usually nylon bristles with paddle brush. And what the paddle brushes do is they're really good for styling like straighter hair or wavier hair that you just want to kind of smooth out. So this is going to promote shine and smoothness in straight hair. I wouldn't necessarily use a paddle brush to blow out curly hair, because you're going to need something a little bit stronger than a paddle brush for that. But this is what a paddle brush is.
So the paddle and the vent brush are kind of like how to start drying the hair. Would be a good place to start when you're trying to dry the hair out first.
So actually a paddle brush you can use as your styling brush.
Okay.
Yeah, so the vent brush is really like the only kind of brush that I would say. And you can use a vent brush to do your whole style. But unless that's kind of been your routine, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Right. The paddle brush, though, would be the second brush. If you're going to start off with a vent brush, you can then move to the paddle brush. So this is a finishing brush.
Okay, that's your styling tool, basically.
Yes.
Before, and then that's after the vent brush. But you said people with straight hair could use this for both.
Yeah, people with straight hair can use this the whole time they're blow drying.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There are a million examples of round brushes, and so I'll just show you one. And the way you pick out your round brush is if you want your hair to have a lot of volume, you're going to go with something that's a little bit bigger. If you want your hair to have more curl on the ends, you want to go with something a little bit smaller. So if you want to get a good curl out of your hair, I would choose a round brush with the barrel small enough to go around your hair 2.5 times. So I'll show you an example. So this particular round brush goes around my hair once, twice, and 2.5. Can you see that? It kind of goes around 2.5 times. Yeah. So this would be a good brush that I would use for my length of hair if I wanted a lot of curl on the ends. But if I wanted more volume than curl, then I would use something a little bit bigger.
Wow, I did not know that. I just thought, okay, if you have longer hair, you want to go with the the bigger barrel.
Right.
So like today she did my hair today. It's so shiny. Anyway, she blow dried it, and I noticed you use a much bigger, rounder brush than I normally do when I style my hair. But okay, so now the bigger it is, the more volume.
The bigger it is, the more volume and the less curl.
And then this smaller if you want more curl.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did use a bigger brush. I actually used a bigger brush than this on you because you just wanted more volume with a little bit of bend on the ends. Where if, I know you mentioned you thought if your hair was longer, you just use a bigger brush. And that is kind of true. I mean, typically if you're going with the 2.5 times rule, the longer your hair is, the bigger the brush would be.
Right.
So that is not exactly false. It's just maybe you had it in the wrong kind of context in your head.
Exactly.
And then there are a couple more brushes I want to bring up. There's a Denman brush for curly hair. So Denman, I know I just showed you this brush, so I don't want to confuse you, but this is a Denman brush, but it is also a paddle brush. And Denman is specifically made for curly hair. And the genius technology, whatever the magic is in this Denman brush, works really well for wet styling curly hair. So if I, when my hair is curly, if I were to use this brush on my wet hair, I can manipulate my hair in a way where the curls get separated and more defined and shiny using this Denman brush. But also, if I wanted to blow dry my curly hair straight, using a Denman brush, you can actually blow dry your curly hair straight, and it gets it really nice and smooth.
Now, just so I understand, when you use a Denman brush, does it look like a paddle brush? Because I know
there are all different styles of Denman. Yeah,
Okay.
they're all different styles, and this one is the paddle, but it has the same bristles as there's a smaller one. It's like a smaller paddle. And that's probably the one that most people are used to seeing. It has like a rubber inside and it has these nylon bristles, but there's something different about this brush versus like even like the knockoff versions of this brush that I don't know what it is that makes it work so well. But
so the Denman brush comes in different sizes.
The Denman brush comes in different sizes and colors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they come in some fun colors.
Okay, so if you have curly hair and you're wanting to either straighten it or define the curls, the Denman brush is what we need to reach for. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, and then there are wet brushes, which I mentioned earlier, and the wet brushes are for detangling, but I just wanted to make that clear that wet brushes are for detangling.
Okay.
That's the basic kind of categories of brushes.
Okay. Why are there so many kinds of round brushes, since we just talked about that? And how would someone like me even choose then the right one?
Okay. So you're going to choose your round brush based on, again, like what your goals are. I know I talked a little bit about the size of the round brush, but then there's also like there's plastic round brushes, there's wooden round brushes, there's aluminum round brushes, there's ceramic round brushes, and then there's all different kinds of bristles. So we're going to talk about all of it, but it's not that much information. I mean, plastic round brushes are like, you know, anytime I think about plastic round brush, I think of like the dollar store, like Goody brand. And they're kind of just, I don't really know like when I would ever recommend that. I feel like they're just sort of a cheap version of a round brush. They're not going to hold heat well. They're not going to style your hair well. I don't know. If you guys have been using a plastic round brush and you're like, Velia, this is the best thing I've ever used in my hair, please explain why you feel that way, because I've never used one in the salon. You know, it's definitely not like a professional tool.
Well, I didn't think about that. So yeah, when you say plastic, that's the material it's made of, because I notice with round brushes, it's always using it as a heating tool, right?
Yeah.
So if it was plastic, I can't see how that would work, because this is all, like this one's made out of what, aluminum?
Yeah.
Because you want it to actually heat up,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like putting a curling iron to your hair. It's the heat that's causing the change.
Exactly.
And the style. So yeah, so a plastic doesn't sound like it would actually even do anything.
No, it really doesn't. So the aluminum, these are both aluminum. There's also ceramic, and the aluminum or the ceramic, those are going to be your best heat conducting styling tools. So it's always important to be careful, you know, how hot you have your blow dryer and how long you hold it on there. But for the most part, blow dryers, you know, especially the newer ones, are not going to get so hot that they're going to like burn your hair. But some of those older ones are like when your heating element goes out, I've seen people like scorch their hair with their blow dryers.
Yeah.
Those are the best to maintain a nice curl.
Okay.
The aluminum or ceramic. Now, the wood, so normally you see wooden handled boar bristle round brushes. I don't think I've ever seen a wooden handle nylon bristle round brush.
It's always a boar.
It's always a boar. And the reason is I think that people who tend to gravitate towards like the more natural kind of materials, like a boar bristle, also like the idea of it being like wood, though I wouldn't necessarily recommend the wooden handle with a boar bristle for a couple of reasons. One, the heat doesn't conduct the heat as well. And two, it gets super slippery. Those wooden handles are really hard to grip. So if you've ever struggled with a round brush, like you're like, I can't turn it while I'm holding the blow dryer, like it's just hard to like turn. It's because there's not anything to grip. Where like as you know, in comparison to
these always have some kind of a grippy handle.
Yeah, a rubber grip handle, especially on a boar bristle like this one. So this is my boar bristle, but it has an aluminum barrel, so it's hotter, and then it has a rubber grip. So it's really easy to use. So now the boar bristle brushes are going to grip your hair more than a nylon bristle for good reason. The boar bristle is to smooth out curl or frizz. So if you have curly hair or frizzy hair, your stylist probably has recommended a boar bristle round brush for you, and that's why. That's why, because it really, really grips your hair. So as you're blow drying it, it's like, it doesn't grip it in like a bad way,
Yeah,
like it's pulling
yeah.
or ripping, but it grips it because you really want to be able to smooth that cuticle and not just have the hair sort of like gently slide through the nylon bristles.
Okay.
Exactly.
So boar is more for people with curlier hair, or
Yes.
maybe just even waves, and it's a lot harder to brush through.
Yes. If your hair is difficult to smooth out, you want to go with a boar bristle round brush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then what about the smaller one? I noticed you have this smaller one.
Oh, this is basically just to show you different sizes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would be for like much shorter hair. You know, if you have like a pixie cut or something and you just need a little bend on the ends, or if you have like little baby bangs or something.
Yeah, I was going to say
that are
I've used the smaller ones for my bangs.
Yeah,
Okay.
or if you have like little baby hairs around your hairline or something, and it's like you try and use this size brush with it, and it basically just makes it like kind of stick straight out because it doesn't rotate around it, then I would go with something a little bit smaller to just kind of, and you don't have to do like the 2.5 times because you're not necessarily looking for curl.
Right.
Unless, if you are,
Unless
then
you
that's
are.
perfect. But if you have little short hairs, this helps control them and just kind of bends them more than like a bigger one would.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Now I got to go back and look at all my round brushes and see, like, are they boar? Are they nylon?
Yeah.
It's like I don't even remember.
There's also hybrid boar and nylon bristle brushes, round brushes.
Okay.
And those are good too. I do have one of those somewhere, but those are good for, you know, sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes like the boar bristles get really hard to kind of like pull through your hair. So if you're somebody who has some frizz, but not like so much frizz where it's like not worth the trouble of using that boar bristle brush, you can get the hybrid and see how it works for you, because it is about half as difficult to slide through your hair.
All right. Wow.
But also very smoothing.
Okay. So good to know. Like, now I realize, okay, that's the reason why there are so many different types of round brushes and also different types of brushes, because there really is like a purpose for each one. So this was really great. So any of you that are watching this feel like there's someone out there who's always had issues with their hair or styling their hair, don't really understand what type of brush to use, please share this episode with them. And if you've learned anything yourself or find value in anything we talk about, please like, share, and subscribe. Really appreciate you guys being here every week. All right, I have another question for you.
Okay.
And I wondered this, I mean, you kind of answered it already, but wet brush or wide tooth comb, which one is best for detangling the hair?
Yeah, I know. We see people using wide tooth combs a lot for detangling, especially on wet hair, and it's a bad idea. So this is a wide tooth comb, and wide tooth combs have a lot of space between the bristles, which you think like, oh, that's going to help like detangle the hair. It's the fact that there's no flexibility whatsoever in the comb really affects the way it detangles. So using something that's more flexible is going to be way less damaging on your hair. I wish I had tangled hair right now, because I would show you how easy it is to just detangle with a wet brush, especially on wet hair, versus a wide tooth comb. So definitely 100% wet brush for detangling, never a wide tooth comb for detangling. A wide tooth comb does have a place though. A wide tooth comb is perfect for combing through freshly curled hair after you curl it with a curling iron.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the only time I actually use a wide tooth comb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of like your fingers, I mean, you can use your fingers, but if you need a little bit more separation of the curls, then this would be the perfect tool for that.
Well, now that you mentioned how wide each section is, what if your tangles are like smaller than that? It's not really going to pull through there. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So would you also recommend, like, if people, because I know I do in the shower, sometimes I'll brush my hair through, so definitely a wet brush should be in your shower.
So it's funny because you do hear a lot like you're not supposed to brush your hair when it's wet, but I I can't even wrap my head around that concept. Like, I understand not ripping through your wet hair because it's more fragile, and you shouldn't rip through your wet hair, but you have to brush your hair when it's wet. I mean, how else are you gonna style it?
Because when you get out, you're gonna be styling it and brushing it, and it's still wet.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, perfect for before the shower, perfect for during the shower, perfect for after the shower.
Wow.
I know I've mentioned before in other episodes that part of your routine before you wash your hair should be to brush your hair first. And this is a great brush for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And ironically, the one brush I don't have
is a detangling brush, a wet brush. Oh my gosh.
It's a wet brush.
Stop it.
And you just said it's good for everything, so I know what I'll be buying.
Wait, so what do you use to brush your hair?
You're going to be mad at me. In the shower, I do have a white tooth one right now.
Okay.
And then I normally just use actually a brush like this.
Okay, like a paddle brush.
Like a paddle brush to just kind of comb it out and then I blow dry. I do the crazy blow dry.
Oh, that's great. This is all really good information.
Just got in trouble.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But see, I mean,
but you can use your paddle brush if you don't want to buy like a vent brush, you know, or even a wet brush. If you're, you should get a wet brush.
I will buy a wet brush. Yes, and we'll put it in the show notes. Your favorites, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all of your favorites.
Yes.
Yeah. How wet or dry should our hair be before you start styling it? Because I've been told 75% dry, 80% dry. What do you suggest?
Yeah. So you're asking, once you've started off with wet hair, before you actually go in with your finishing sort of styling brush. So not the vent brush, which is soaking wet hair, but the round brush. I'd say if you have no frizz or curl, then you can dry your hair up to 80% dry, 75-80% dry. That's not false.
Okay.
If you have no frizz or curl. If you have frizz or curl, you want it to be much, much less than that. You want to start off by using your styling tool, your finishing brush. So in most cases with curly or frizzy hair, you're going to use, let's say, a boar bristle round brush. You want to start using that when your hair is about 50% wet still.
Got it.
Because if you start seeing the frizz coming out of the wet hair, and then, or even the curl starts to form, forget about if it's already dry anywhere, then you're totally screwed and you have to wet it again.
You'll have to re-wet it. Okay.
Because once that shape starts to take, then all bets are off. You're gonna be going over that same section 50 times, and
nothing's gonna change.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so recap. If your hair is not curly or no frizz,
right,
the 75 to 80% of it dry before you start styling.
Right.
But if you have any wave or curl or frizz, 50%. You want to start with your hair slightly damper.
Yeah, you want it to be damp all the way through to the ends. Even if the very, very tips of your hair start to dry.
Okay.
Might
as well just re-wet it.
Just re-wet it. I mean, you don't have to go take another shower, but just get it wet.
Right.
You don't want to start off with it dripping wet, because then you're just going to be putting too much heat on it. But you do want to start off with it damp all the way through. Yeah. If you start getting little fuzzies, re-wet that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. So good. Now, on top of the proper brush, to have a good hair day, Velia, why don't you tell us how to do that?
Well, speaking of having a good hair day, Beauty Lab listeners, we see you, we appreciate you, and to thank you for being the best community a podcast could ask for, we've got a little something special just for you from Velia Beauty Co., the hair care line that's all about giving your hair the love and nutrition it deserves. These hair products are packed with natural minerals and plant proteins, leaving your hair strong, resilient, and super shiny. And get this, they're cruelty-free, sulfate-free, paraben-free, and safe for colored or keratin-treated hair. As a thank you for being part of the Beauty Lab family, you can get 20% off your entire product order from VeliaBeautyCo.com. Just use the code TheBeautyLabPodcast at checkout. That's the Beauty Lab Podcast, all 4 words, all caps. We'll link it in the show notes.
All right. I do have one last question.
Okay.
And I am guilty of not doing this often enough, but can you please tell us how often should we clean our brushes and what does that process look like to do it properly?
I think if you're someone who uses a lot of hair products and you can clearly see your hair product kind of getting gunky and building up on your brushes, you might have to wash your brushes like once a week, depending if you're someone who has like a lot of stuff going on in there. You should be pulling the hair out of your brushes every time you use your brush. That way it just doesn't start building up and like getting more difficult to kind of slide your hair through the brush. But if you're someone who uses just a little bit of product maybe, and you don't see anything kind of building up, once a month is perfectly fine. And the way you would do it is you could fill up your sink with hot water and just add some like dish soap. Let your brushes, take the hair out first, and then put your brushes in the soapy water and just let them sit in there for like 5 minutes or so. If you have an old toothbrush or something, take a toothbrush and just kind of scrub the bristles. You don't want to see anything like on the inside of the barrel or on the bristles, because if you have a dirty brush and then you're blow drying your hair, your clean hair with a dirty brush, your hair is going to get greasier faster and you're going to have to like wash it again sooner. So just keep your brushes clean.
Okay, well, that was my last question. Is there anything else you want to add that I might have missed?
No, I just, have fun trying out the different brushes. And I guess the only thing that I would want to add is using a vent brush in the beginning of your styling could very well be like a new thing that people have not really heard. It's basically just to replace using your fingers, because your fingers can actually cause frizz if you're, and not if you're doing it like in a professional kind of grade way, because we're very like picky about like the way we direct the hair with our fingers. But I think sometimes when you're using a brush before you start styling your hair, you're actually helping to reduce the frizz and kind of get a good shape going before you get in there with your round brush or your paddle brush.
Got it. I definitely know what I'll be buying.
Vent brush, wet brush.
Yeah, the wet brush for sure. All right, gang, thanks again for being with us today and every week, week in and week out. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. My name's Monina.
I'm Velia.
Until next time,
keep experimenting with your beauty routine. I should probably take the hair out of these brushes. Gross.
Right.
You always say, all right. And I'm always like, it's like the same thing every time. Oh my gosh. Stop it. This is all really good information.
Just